This is communism at its most literal. Just 2 days off per month, except for national holidays, and a wage at the end of the year of between 100 and 200 pounds. And if the wages seem low, the perks, you could say, are high. Free housing, free schooling and medical care, free electricity. Every basic need provided by the commune. These are the presses of what is probably the paper with the biggest readership in the world, the People's Daily of China. The paper received 3,000 letters a day. What would happen if a letter arrived which was very critical, say, of Chairman Hua or Vice Premier Deng?
No, we don't publish in the People's Daily, but we can shift those papers to Chairman Hua and Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping.
So that he would see the criticism that is made of him?
Yeah, they can get these letters.
How does it happen that the children learn their mother tongue?
The Chinese government is placing tremendous emphasis on the teaching of English, which the Chinese see as vital if they're to improve their technological and cultural links with the West.
Oh, I'd like to be a translator or something about journalism.
Oh, in journalism? Well, you might be the London correspondent of the People's Daily.
We'd like
At present, the Chinese have their Great Wall practically to themselves. The Chinese get a lot of fun out of it, especially watching some of their number negotiating the tricky bits. Along with some freedom of speech and with renewed contacts with the outside world, China seems to be allowing some private luxury back into the system. What the thoughts of Chairman Mao might have been at all this is anybody's guess. Chinese steam engine number 985 makes a magnificent sight in the mountains north of Peking. But she's also a reminder of how old-fashioned so much of China is. That's why the Minzu Hotel, where foreigners stay in Peking, often seems like the United Nations, with Japanese, American, French, Italian, and English businessmen all here to help with China's most important modernization program, that of her industry. This is the main iron and steel works near Peking, and all the Westerners who see it agree it's 30 years out of date. A modern works would use a much bigger blast furnace. The steel converters here are 30-ton converters. Modern plants use 300-ton ones. And there's little or no pollution or safety control. So the works is being modernized, and helping the Chinese to do it is a British team, a joint effort by Davy International, a heavy engineering firm, and the British Steel Corporation.
How much control do you have on the number 4 blast furnace?
这个4号高炉控制是有哪些个控制项目？现在大部分是手动。No, we have only new manual equipment. No.
No computer?
No computer.
They're drawing up plans to tell the Chinese what should be modernized and improved and how they might go about it. The output at this plant is very high, despite the old machinery. The factory reached its yearly production figure well ahead of schedule, and, say the British team, the quality of what they produced was excellent. But as with steam engines, so with steel plants. There comes a stage when old equipment simply isn't economic, and China is turning on a vast scale to the technologically advanced countries of the world to help replace plants like this and to build new ones. No one in the business community, though, should imagine that the Chinese are a pushover. They may want a great deal for their modernization program, but they're very fussy and they're very choosy about how they get it. One major petrochemical contract has just slipped away from British hands because the price wasn't right. Michael Brunson, News at 10, at the Shoudu Iron and Steel Works near Peking. Of the 4 programs for modernization announced by the Chinese government so far, the one for agriculture is going to affect most Chinese most directly, because it's that industry in which most of them are engaged, either in farming towns like this one or in the more remote rural areas. 80% of the Chinese, that's over 700 million of them, live in the rural areas. Agriculture is still the basis of the Chinese economy. And much of that farming is still done like this, in the old primitive way, in small fields with hand tools. In the market town, you'll see some evidence of the gradual mechanization that's being introduced. Small motor carts, the odd tractor. But for many farmers, the horse and mule cart is still the only transport he has. And that's what the government is trying to change through the program of agricultural modernization. It's a long process. Here, the Chu Sen Production Brigade, all 800 of them, are doing their bit towards modernization, but they're doing it the old-fashioned way. They've decided that they want to level some of the fields belonging to their local commune, so that in future tractors can get in here to work the land. So they've set to with spades and rakes, and sometimes their bare hands. Everyone of working age, and that's from 15 to 60 for the women, and up to the age of 65 for the men, takes part. It may look a bit haphazard, and it certainly takes time when the earth's all got to be carted away in little wheelbarrows, but they're actually using a system of trenches to move the earth to a new lower and a new upper field. 3 small bulldozers and a tractor and grader finish the work off. And under the modernization plan, there'll be much more and much larger equipment of this kind so as to raise farming efficiency. But the problem China faces as it enters its period of modernization is this. What will happen to the millions of people whose digging and pushing will be replaced? There is no unemployment at the moment. There's no drift away from the land to the towns and cities. But with modernization, there could well be. Michael Brunson, News at 10, in Chongqing County, China. This is communism at its most literal, for this is the center of the Evergreen People's Commune near Peking. Population 43,000, 20,000 actual workers, whose job is to produce fresh vegetables for the capital nearby, which they do with a vengeance, in summer from their fields and in winter from greenhouses like this. Everyone works from the age of 16 or 17 when schooling ends, the women until they're 60, the men until they're 65. Just 2 days off per month, except for national holidays. And a wage at the end of the year of between 100 and 200 pounds, depending on how many work points each worker has gained and on how well the commune has done in selling its produce. Like so much else in China, the whole system is labor-intensive. Here, commune ladies in an underground storage vault are turning cabbages to ventilate them. And if the wages seem low, the perks, you could say, are high. Free vegetables, free housing, free schooling and medical care, free electricity. Every basic need provided by the commune. For the old, there are pensions, unheard of before the communist regime, of £8 a month. But there are things they do not have, these commune workers. Free elections, for example, they don't have them. Their leaders are chosen, but only by the state-appointed Revolutionary Committee of 31 members. They don't have cars, though they do have, we were told, private bicycles, watches and sewing machines. There's a system of food rationing, though apart from a general shortage of meat, there's plenty of food. And there's a severely limited amount of freedom of movement around the country. But as with so much else in China, things are beginning to change. We went to see the home of the commune warehouse keeper. He was at work, but his wife was there to receive us. Outside, we were shown the family pig. That's their property, to provide them with a little extra variety in their diet. And a certain amount of commune land is allocated for individual workers to farm themselves. And inside, as the lady of the house greeted us with tea, that traditional and important gesture of Chinese hospitality, she explained that this was their house because they'd built it themselves and had not relied on one provided by the commune. So, along with some freedom of speech and with renewed contacts with the outside world, China seems to be allowing some private luxury back into the system. And there it was, sitting on the sideboard, an almost unprecedented thing in China, a private television set. Michael Brunson, News at 10, at a people's commune near Peking. Only now is the full extent of the upheaval which took place in China during the Cultural Revolution and the time of the Gang of Four becoming really apparent. This is Peking University, which was effectively closed down for 10 years.
How is the question presented?
Mrs. Chen graduated in 1962, began teaching here, and then 4 years later, during the Cultural Revolution, paid the price. First, she says she was forced to make revolution in Peking. And then, because she was an intellectual, she was sent off to work in the rice fields of South China. At the same time, her husband was sent off to the north, 1,000 miles away. But now she's back at the university and is very highly regarded because she's a teacher of English.
Yes. What is the question he asks?
How does it happen that children learn their mother tongue so well?
Yes. How does it happen that the children learn their mother tongue?
The Chinese government is placing tremendous emphasis on the teaching of English, which has become the second language in China, despite a desperate lack of modern English textbooks. Here, the students plow on through the words of an obscure writer about language.
Why is native language learned so well? Or 2 years person. How does it happen?
Of the 8,000 students at the university, over half receive some instruction in English, which the Chinese see as vital if they're to improve their technological and cultural links with the West. These students are, in fact, far older than they look. They're between 22 and 30, catching up on the university training they couldn't get while the universities were closed, and as sharp a bunch of undergraduates as you could wish for.
Oh, I'd like to be a translator or something about journalism.
Oh, in journalism?
Yes, I'm interested in journalism, but I'm afraid I won't be able to do any such work.
Well, you might be the London correspondent of the People's Daily.
Of course, we'd like to. Surely.
Really, I snatch every minute of my time to study English.
Really?
Yes, even when I'm queue in the dining hall, I take out my new books to read, to remember,
is
memorize.
Michael Brunson, News at 10 at Peking University. Really studying the English books all the time?
Because I think...
These are the presses of what is probably the paper with the biggest readership in the world, the People's Daily of China, which prints 6.5 million copies a day, and which the people in charge believe is probably read by 100 million Chinese a day in all. The paper is also printed by photo facsimile in 9 other cities, and plates for the presses in 11 other centers are flown from Peking each morning. It's a 6-page paper, closely controlled by the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party, for whom, incidentally, it produces a profit of over £3 million a year. It's fairly turgid reading. A typical lead story is the rectification, as they describe it, of a provincial Communist Party. But one section has really sprung to life. Every day, the paper receives a vast mailbag, 3,000 letters a day, according to the officials at the paper. Once again, they tell you it's all the result of the overthrow of the wicked Gang of Four. Under them, they say, in the declining years of Chairman Mao, the letters that were printed told you that spring is coming in the springtime. Now the letters talk about almost everything. A lot of individual grievances, criticism about the bureaucracy and party organization, criticism and suggestions about Chinese-made goods, and some criticism of the central government under Chairman Hua. But, as the foreign editor explained, the People's Daily, the official voice of Chinese communism, is not yet ready for totally free speech. So what would happen, for example, if a letter arrived which was very critical, say, of Chairman Hua or Vice Premier Deng? Would you be able to print that in the newspaper?
No, we don't publish in the People's Daily, but we can shift those papers to Chairman Hua and Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping.
So that he would see the criticism that is made of him?
Yeah, they can get these letters.
Of course, only a tiny percentage of the letters get published. The others are sorted by a special staff and are sent off to the various government departments concerned, where they may, of course, be ignored. But for now, writing to the editor of the People's Daily seems to be the popular means of letting off a great head of Chinese steam. Michael Brunson, News at 10, Peking. These are the Americans who didn't wait for normalization. Chinese Americans from Honolulu, who began their $2,000 14-day tour of China before Chairman Hua and President Carter announced the resumption of diplomatic relations. They're visiting here the splendid tombs of the Ming emperors about 50 miles from Peking.
The coffin in the middle is Emperor Zhu Yijun's coffin, and 2 on each side are the 2 empresses.
The country certainly has plenty to offer the tourist. Sites like this, with the 16th century burial chamber of the ancient emperors dug deep into the hillside, and, of course, the Great Wall. At present, the Chinese have their Great Wall practically to themselves. Indeed, they visit it in considerable numbers, especially members of China's present-day People's Liberation Army, the successors of the soldiers who used to guard this outpost of the Ming Empire. The Chinese get a lot of fun out of it, especially watching some of their number negotiating the tricky bits. Whether the Great Wall loses some of its charm when the American and other Western hordes arrive remains to be seen. About the only Americans you see up there at the moment are the big shots from American companies, taking time out from driving hard bargains in Peking.
You on a tourist trip or business trip or what?
The Chase Manhattan Bank, right.
Oh, yes.
We've been here.
Yeah.
Talking with the Bank of China, who are our hosts.
Right, yes. And you've taken a day out to go and...
This is work.
This is work.
This is work. By the time you get to the top, you will see it's work. Absolutely.
Although the wall stretches for thousands of miles, there are only a few short sections like this one which have been fully restored. Just about enough, in fact, to accommodate the tourists that are able to get here. Michael Brunson, News at 10 on the Great Wall of China. This is China already in the international sports arena. There was an ice hockey tournament in Peking, and here the Chinese team are taking to the ice to meet the West Germans. China is a country which is as interested in sport as any other. Chairman Mao was keen on it and ordered the promotion of sport to build up, as he put it, the health of the people. But they now say that during the time of the Gang of Four, during Mao's declining years, his words on sport, as well as on everything else, were ignored. But now the Chinese tell you, with the overthrow of the Gang of Four, things are being put right. This is a gymnastics class at the Institute of Physical Culture in Peking. These girls are learning gymnastic dance. Dancing of all kinds, by the way, is well on the way back in China. The government has just allowed the reintroduction of what it calls group dancing for the Chinese. Gymnastics, the institute director told me, is one area where China believes it has athletes of world class already, though here the students have some way to go. In other sports, though, notably football and athletics, they know they're far behind. But basketball is one sport where they feel they can hold their own, especially with their women's team. And with the revival of sport generally, China is officially undecided about whether to go to the Moscow Olympics in 1980. Privately, they talk rather more of doing well at the 1984 Games. And this is a sport for which the Olympic Committee may have to introduce a special category. It's called Wushu, an ancient Chinese martial art, which, like judo, combines a lot of mental discipline as well. It needs to, with a sword blade flashing so close to an opponent's head. And who knows, with China re-emerging on the world's sports scene, it might just be China's first sport export. Michael Brunson, News at 10, at the Institute of Physical Culture in Peking.
From the moment the Chinese flag was paraded round the arena by a Texan cowgirl, you could tell this was a night that was going to be different. And Vice Premier Deng seemed to enjoy every minute of it. He accepted the gift of a Stetson, delighted in putting it on for the photographers, and waved enthusiastically to the crowd. Then, as if to emphasize what a political showman he is, the Chinese leader went on his own parade, in the back of a stagecoach. By this time, the normally solemn Chinese press corps covering Deng's visit had decided that they should go Texan too. Hats were adjusted, they posed for pictures and tucked into meals of barbecued beef, pork and beans. Meanwhile, Vice Premier Deng was discovering what rodeos are all about. Grown men riding animals with a mind of their own and trying to remain on top, mostly without success. What the thoughts of Chairman Mao might have been at all this is anybody's guess. Norman Rees, ITN, in Simonton, Texas.